Okay, stand by, friends. Just give it a little bit of time. Greetings, friends. Monday, 15th of April. And we're just parachuting in here live. Myself and my dear friend, Robert Dakota, who's a tremendous man, great human, a producer, formidable, lives in Sedona, has been doing great works for many, many long years, not least amongst the indigenous communities. And Robert is producing events upcoming this weekend, which I will be returning to Sedona for. I just landed back in Florida a couple of days ago, and this morning I landed here in LA, so I'm in Malibu. I'll be heading up, Robert, to Vegas to see an underground facility, some things I'm looking forward to witnessing and hopefully being able to film, and then I will come on and see you in a couple of days on Friday. But Robert, this is really your platform. I just wanted to get out to my network so we could try and muster some friends to come and see what we're doing over the weekend in Sedona, because I think it's going to be important stuff. So you've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Sacha. I've been doing these Earth Origins now for several years. This is the sixth one. We've been doing it all through the lockdowns and the scares of people wanting to get there. You the least of none. You the least of the characters. Freddie Silva is a specialist on temples and will be bringing information on how the temples operate and how they tune up the human body. William Henry is going to be talking about plasma beings, and that totally ties into what Randall's going to be speaking about, which is some technology that I think that you'll be very interested in and your audience will be very interested in, and that's the thunderstorm generator. And it runs off of plasma once it gets going. And Randall's going to be giving an update. Technology coming along and
Okay, you're breaking up a bit at this end, brother. I'm hoping that it maybe is my lousy signal here in Malibu, which is famous for shitty internet. But I think I got the gist of what you're talking about. So the 3 days, just describe. I'm arriving on the 19th or the 18th, the evening of the 18th. But the 19th, 20th, and 21st, which is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those are the main events. And as you mentioned, we'll be joined by this group: Freddie Silva, Martin Gray, Randall Carlson, William Henry, the great William Henry, and myself. I've not prepared any talking points. I was going to just jump in and be very quantum about the conversation. I have my computer with me and about 12 million slides in any event of out-of-place artifacts and alien technologies and weird stuff. So very happy just to have a very quantum perspective. But I think that Randall's joined us. Randall Carlson, sir. Good to see you.
Randall has arrived. Randall is in the building.
Indeed.
Oh, there's Randall. Hey, Randall.
And most welcome you are too, sir. Very good to see you.
Good to see you after hearing so many good things about, well, Mostly good things. No, just kidding. Just
Well,
kidding.
start with the bad things, and we'll work our way from there, shall we?
No, hasn't been any bad things yet. I got plenty of bad things to say about Robert, but we'll save that for later.
Very good. Well, yeah, looking forward to this weekend, Randall, very much indeed. And I understand that we've been put together on some kind of a bromance road trip there. I'm showing the slide.
No.
Pathways of the Ancients, Sedona, Prophecy, Rock, and Winslow. What's Winslow? I've never heard of it.
That would be where the impact crater is. That's what are we thinking, Robert?
No, we're going to the petroglyphs there at Rock Art Ranch. We'll be meeting Brantley.
Okay, but not the crater on this one.
I don't think so. It depends if we have time. I think we'll be spending most of our time down at Rock Art Ranch. I'm setting up a tour where Sacha can film with these different Hopi guys at different places, which isn't offensive to the tribe at all, and we can film in all these places where we have permissions, and there'll be locations in Sedona and Flagstaff and in Winslow. In Winslow, there's this big ranch. It's 5,000 acres, and there's the canyon, as you know, Randall, called Chevelon Canyon. There's 3,000 petroglyphs there, and it's some of the most petroglyphs in one place in this region. And also there's some petroglyphs dating back 9,500 years. So that's very close to just after the Younger Dryas.
Randall, what's your critical focus at the moment? I know you're a bit of a polymath, but what's your critical focus at the moment?
Well, I was going to ask Robert, because I'm actually in the next couple of days going to try to narrow it down. I know Robert wants me to talk about some of the plasma energy developments that are going on, so I'm certainly going to do that. And I may segue from that into, one of the things I've been researching for years and years is the mythology surrounding the Grail and all of its traditions and legends and its counterparts in other traditions. And what my research has led me to believe is that hiding within that symbolism of the Grail and the restoration of the wasteland and the healing of the king and all of that is a technology, a lost, if you want to call it technology. I use the term broadly, but a type of technology that would be employed in the aftermath of global environmental catastrophes to accelerate the healing process. And in that respect, I would segue from my discussions about some of the innovative discoveries surrounding plasma technology, the fourth state of matter, both in terms of technological applications, but also medical and healing applications, and suggesting that there may be an overlap there, that our ancestors, the ancient peoples, knew some level of, had some methodology for the utilization of plasma energy, which is essentially plasma being the fourth state of matter. And when you start looking into it, it seems to make sense out of a lot of things that are otherwise rather inexplicable and incongruous. So I'm thinking that's where I'm going to go with it. I'm planning to take Wednesday off to just really get my program together. I'm flying out on Thursday, and then I will, be there Friday. So I'm going to have Wednesday and hopefully sometime Thursday night once I get to Sedona to finalize my present. It's going to be all material that I've got, but a lot of it, some of it I presented, but a lot of it I haven't. So it's just a matter of organizing it into a coherent presentation mode. So rather than jumping around, I can try to concoct some kind of a coherent narrative around this material. So that's, I think, where I'm going to go with it.
Very interesting. And Robert, you've got the floor for the moment.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this technology that Randall's been following for about 4 years, and the simplicity of it is really amazing, and it can be a segue with the fossil fuels, because in combination, it works with the fossil fuels to get engine to get going, and once it gets generating, it's self-running. It's running by itself. And this could be a great help to low income, but also the res, the indigenous people. And that was kind of part of what I had in mind behind this trip with you and Randall getting together on, is that once this conversation comes out, I'm sure there'll be a lot more conversation around it. And you and Randall have a lot in common already. He's looking to find some property in Tennessee and that area, from northern Georgia up to Tennessee, to build a community that has a school that, they bring back the trades, they bring back carpentry, they teach people the basics and get back to growing their own food. You guys have a lot in common those ways, and that was one reason why I wanted to put you together on this tour. And whoever comes on this journey is going to be part of a much bigger thing than just the journey. It's about a bigger mission and a project that both of you guys are working on. I think there's some collaboration there.
That's really good news. I mean, I curiously enough, Randall, I'm headed to Tennessee. I'm starting a tour. 12, I think we're crossing about 12 states. So my first gig is just to meet up with you in Sedona, but then I'm heading on, actually, all roads leading to Tennessee. I'm not allowed to say too much at the moment, but put it this way: your plans and my plans are entirely congruent, and Tennessee is ground zero. It is the place. I'm planning to make a huge announcement by the time I get to Tennessee on about the 7th, I think, of May. But then in Tampa on the 17th of May, I'm coming out of the closet on this. But put it this way, Tennessee configures dead center of that plan. But it's great that I get a chance to speak with you, hear some of your ideas, and see where the intersect might be. Extraordinary, Robert. I had no idea that Randall had also had Tennessee in his sights, because good God.
Well, how interesting that, okay, independently, you've been looking at the data, looking at the situation, and honed in on Tennessee. So you come from one way, I come from another way. We both kind of honed in on that as being, of course, the primary thing for me was I go, okay, well, it seems to have a lot of check marks in the plus column. Plus, it's right in my backyard, which is going to make it easy for me to deploy my resources. I've got an established building business in Georgia. And I think now my understanding is Tennessee and Georgia are going to have established reciprocity. So my building license and contractor builder license and designer's license would all be good in Tennessee. So that's
my Lord
for me. Yeah.
That's
the areas I've been looking at, Sacha, are pretty much, remote and don't really have like highly regulated zoning regulations and so on.
That's the thing. It seems to be that we get into far more esoteric objectives, like the allodial titling and removing all of the invisible federal and historical liens against the soil, because people think they own a piece of land. They do not. They've got ancient liens against that land that they only find out about down the line. So the business of untethering and unfettering your land from any of these visible or invisible liens is essential, and claiming full titleage, getting back to the land patents of the indigenous natives, and then, basically in the nicest possible way, telling the parent corporation to go and fuck itself, because really, time out. We've all just had enough, and this absurd shit show that's playing out on the television screens of life are such an affront to every single human being with a pulse. It's over.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And I think we'll have a chance to discuss this further. I mean, I've been pretty much following the real estate market in Tennessee for about 3 to 4 years now. Seen some awesome places come and go. But they keep, things keep showing up, because what's happening is a lot of the older landowners, farmers, and so on are getting to the age where they can't run a farm anymore. So they're either passing away or they're going into assisted living. Their offspring or grandchildren or whatever are inheriting it. And They don't want to be farmers, so it's out there on the market. And so there's kind of this turnover happening right now. I have made, let's see, in the last, 2 years, I've made 6 excursions. I've spent about a month and a half total up exploring various regions, primarily from Nashville eastward, to get to know the lay of the land and what the resources are. And so, I'm very encouraged. I mean, there's some incredible natural wonders there. I don't know if you've looked specifically at any areas yet, but certainly if you have or haven't, I can give you access to everything I've learned.
Thank you. We have been looking studiously for the last 3 months, and we've got one of our a team, a very brilliant woman, recently retired as a professor from San Francisco University. She just had enough of academia. She's joined us full time, and she's actually now critically leading that the prospect of land acquisition. So we're evaluating a lot of different spaces there, but I'm just not allowed to say exactly where until the dateline. But I'm just so excited to hear that you're also aligned with that. I have this deep, abiding sense, Robert and Randall, that this year, as it transitions into midpoint of 2025, is just really the most axiomatic point in our modern history. I just sense it so deeply. I was sat in the Mexican desert last week with some shaman and oracles, and under the epicenter of the totality of the solar eclipse, there was one point in the zone of silence, about 3 hours flight out of Mexico City in the desert, where you were directly under the totality of the eclipse for 4 minutes, 28.1 seconds. And a group of very brilliant German scientists flew out as well. I met up with them, and we performed ceremony during that eclipse, punched a huge hole in the clouds, which of course you'll probably know how to do yourself. But taking a bit of a lead off Dan Winter, my old friend. But there was geoengineered cloud cover over the entirety of the district, and the locals had all said never in their history they ever seen cloud cover this time of year. And yet 2 or 3 days leading up to the eclipse, all of this kind of geoengineering stuff, and you could tell because of the kind of rainbow, kind of shimmering rainbow that you can see in the sky, and multiple prisms in different areas, and the classic kind of nanoparticulates of metals. But the point being that the day of the eclipse, it was completely cloud banked, the whole thing. And we went out there with these shaman and oracles. They said, "Don't worry, we can take care of this." And after a bit of a ceremony, which lasted about 40 minutes, boom, literally punched a hole in the sky. No shit. And we watched the eclipse in its entirety. We weren't looking at the sun because we were not intentionally looking at the sun. We were moving into the central sun during the eclipse, which is what one is supposed to do. But the point being, the photographs and what we got on film show that we had this hole punched in the clouds. And I'm alluding to that because it was just another demonstration to us of how this systemic interference in any natural born cycles or rhythms or relationships that humans have with nature, it's all about third-party intervention. Everywhere we look, we're being interceded and intervened and interloped. And I think that this year into next year sees that fulmination point where it simply cannot gain traction beyond a point. There's talk of mobilization of Chinese troops on the bullshit. UN peacekeepers. I don't think so. No, I think 200 guns in Middle America with Bibles and pitchforks, that'll take care of it.
Well, I have to admit, I like the sound of that. Hey, I mean, yeah, we could get into that. I'm old enough now that I've just seen the exponential increase of the bullshit. And
right.
Like standing here looking at it, like, aren't you, the rest of you people, seeing what I'm seeing here? That's why it's always gratifying to, we're finding each other. I think that's what's coming out of this, that those of us who are actually awake, not woke, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who've been paying attention and realizing, we've got one road that leads to oblivion and the other road that leads to exaltation and glory that we can't even begin to conceive of yet.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And it goes back to the old Aboriginal um, um, the critical message from the Aboriginal peoples, which was always to dream wisely. And I think that we simply have to get back to that, and that's the hard bit for most people in the Western world to get their heads around, because we've been so cultivated, we've been so cultured, which is to say cult programmed. That's all that culture is. It's a cult programming, one that is made normal. But we've been so cultivated and cultured into a worldview which is predicated on this abstruse bullshit called Newtonian physics and Einsteinian logic and Cartesian logic and Darwinian theoretics, and it's all so grim and abysmal. I mean, you can just see those old, no disrespect to you, Randall, but you can see all those Victorian bearded farts back in the day sat around chomping cigars in their midnight Mason salons, having a bloody good chortle about how they're going to rewrite history for the rest of us mandarins, and they did a bloody good job for a while. And in 1952, that was the year they plopped the British curriculum, that the British curriculum was plopped in globally from Singapore to Alaska. The 1952 seemed to be the dateline when the Brits, through a beautifully articulated conspiracy, managed to install the academic software determining, the thing about the antediluvians and about the dinosaurs and about the Stone Age and the cave art and, the Renaissance and all of these other goddamn psyops, because it's all they ever were was psyops. But that's all falling apart right now. We've just done a tremendous amount of work with the Lazarus Initiative in exposing cave art and the Renaissance as being one of the biggest psyops in history. I don't know if you agree with that piece.
Well, I can't agree or disagree. I have to learn more about that particular perspective on the Renaissance, as I've always pronounced it. But I'd be interested in hearing more. Yes, indeed, I would.
Very good. Then I'll make that one of my chief talking points on the weekend for your edification, if nothing else.
Now, I will warn you. I was initiated into Masonic craft about 44 years ago. So I've got a double take on it.
Well, I'd love to learn from that. Now, I was just in the Zone of Silence Desert with the son of Dr. Alex Ling, beloved friend of mine, the son of the Grand Master of the biggest lodge in Germany, albeit his father was murdered when he pulled out of that particular lodge when certain things were happening that he was not happy with. But very, very interesting. And part of what we were talking about, Dr. Alex Ling and I, because he's a generational Mason. He's no longer practicing the craft himself. Since his father was murdered, he completely pulled away with his family, and he's now involved in undoing a lot of Babylonian knots and a lot of Babylonian witchery. He's now purposed his life towards undoing a lot of work that was done. So yes, indeed, I know that there's two sides of that particular that particular blade, two sides, absolutely. And I've also argued this and had rocks at the head, incidentally, from my own community when I've been in defense of good Masonry and the good Templar orders. And I know members of Order of St. John and all of these various schools. Over 20 years ago, I got to meet with Prince Massimo Lancelotti and went to meet the Knights of Malta. And 24 years ago, I went looking for him. I was hanging out in Egypt and in Malta looking to meet with them. I wanted to learn and understand more about what was behind this complex of covert power. And I met a few of these old guys back in the day. They must all be dead now, but I'll tell you, they were some fine individuals who mentored me. And I was never a Freemason. I would never roll a fucking sock up for anyone. But I'm here to learn as well about some of the more positive aspects, because for sure, the general mien regarding Masonry, rather like the United Nations, and I'm a former Director General in the United Nations IGO sector. I get rocks at the head all the time for that. Oh, he's a crown agent or this, that, and the other. But indeed, Santos Bonacci and who's that fantastic guy who was the Vatican Freemason, who's kind of broke ranks and is now out there. Leo Zagami. Have you ever met with him, Randall?
No, but normally, see, now Masons have no objection to Catholics being Masons, but Catholics have a great deal of objection to becoming Masons. Like the Vatican basically proscribes you do not become a Mason. So if he became a Mason, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he had to break ranks with the church.
Right, right.
Because that is a prohibition that they have held in place for years, for decades, for centuries, actually.
So what?
Go ahead.
Whilst we're on the subject, I was in the Vatican 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, something like that. I went to go and embrace one of the old cardinals who's turning 94 and on his way out, and who's been a source of a font of incredible wisdom and intel to me for the last 4 years since the COVIDiocy nonsense broke out. And that cardinal, I won't name him here, I'll name him to you in the private, but because he's still alive, albeit on life support. But he has absolutely assured me that the Vatican is gone to the devil. He said the entire College of Cardinals are sodomites practicing dark arts in the papal crypts. And he says it's literally Sodom and Gomorrah central in the Vatican now. So I don't know what you're hearing about those enclaves.
Well, not too much about that, but I can say this very briefly. There's no doubt Freemasonry has been infiltrated from time to time over the last century or two, and generally by people who's who are not have the highest aspirations, moral aspirations. So you have to separate that from the craft and the good work that they do, and their primary function, which is they are the custodians of this incredible treasure trove of symbolism that has come down to us from, well, historically we can trace it back to the Middle Ages, but I'm sure it goes much, much deeper than that. And we know that it was universal because when some of the first, like even here in Georgia, the first governor of Georgia, Oglethorpe, established Freemasonry in Georgia in 1717. And one of the interesting things they discovered was when they got here was that the Cherokee were also practicing almost virtually the same rituals with very similar symbolism. And likewise with the Iroquois, a number of other Indian tribes that I know of for sure seem to have been very Masonic in their religious view of the world. And that's a very interesting question that needs to be explored further. I would like to learn more about that. But yeah, so there's that component of it. And again, the symbolism, just like I think you could go into Catholicism and find a very rich body of symbolism in there that's independent of what is happening. I fully believe what you just said is true about the moral degradation of the church, but still within there's symbolism that has interesting depths of meaning. Because for one thing, that the church has appropriated so much of the traditions that preceded it. The holy spots and the sacred geometry, all of that, they've taken on a whole bunch of that stuff. So when you look at that, okay, if that exists within the symbolism. So we have to, I think, distinguish between that and what has happened by the flawed humans that have ended up being the custodians of that tradition and of that symbolism. And that's what I try to explain to people about Freemasonry. And of course, now we're kind of, the last Masonic president that was Gerald Ford. And we haven't had a Masonic president since Gerald Ford. And I have done exhaustive research trying to find if there's any Freemasons that I can name that are in positions of power, at least publicly known, and I haven't been able to find a single one. I do also point out that, people will say, 14 American presidents have been Freemasons. And my research, that's true. 23 American presidents have been Episcopalians. So that implies to me that of the two, it's probably the Episcopalians who are the puppet masters pulling all the strings on all of this. Wouldn't you think?
Yes, indeed. Either way, it smells like conspiracy to me. And I'm not sure that humans need conspirators old boys clubs, secret societies, determining the outcomes any longer. And I think that's really the point. You know, going back to the eclipse, I don't know, were you following this at all, Randall and Robert? I mean, this describes the intersecting lines between the Nineveh and the Salem lines in 2017. In 2017, the last total eclipse trajectory passed directly over 7 towns in North America called Salem. And this one in 2024, last week, passed over 7 towns known as Nineveh, and forming this Alpha Omega signature of God on the surface of North America, which was prophesied a very long time ago that this would occur. The curious thing is that it's pretty, and you know, when you understand Nineveh and Jonah and the whale and him, you know, fleeing to Nineveh to, you know, 40 days of atonement and all that stuff. Well, you know, you look at the last day of the eclipse, you know, the 8th of April, then you look at the 40 days of atonement ending on, I think, the 19th of May. It's almost certain that the shit show is going to kick off then in terms of the orchestrated reset or the attempt at the reset. I had General Flynn on my show last week for almost an hour. I'm talking up the Black Swan event, whatever that is, wherever that might eventuate. But the curious thing here is that, you know, if you have 7 towns alone in America known as Salem, and they all happen to be on that trajectory of the 2017 total eclipse in North America, and then 7 towns known as Nineveh, and they happen to be directly on the trajectory of this total eclipse, and the founding fathers and the founding Masons of the United States of America clearly knew something at that time about the movement of the spheres. It's just terribly interesting stuff, is it not?
Very interesting stuff. Absolutely. Yes. I'll just mention this just as an aside. Here's the kind of things I've been looking at. And this is what first alerted me to this possible connection, was that there was the eclipse in February of 1979 that passed directly over the Cascades region. The path of totality passed directly over the Cascades region, including Mount St. Helens. And then, of course, in May of 1980, Mount St. Helens blows its stack. And I always felt that there's a connection there, because geologically, from that standpoint of when you interrupt that normal rhythm of day-night cycle, there are tectonic consequences to that. You know, you have this rapid cooling, this interruption of the normal absorption of solar radiation, even whether it's cloudy or not, by the lithosphere, and gets interrupted. And if you're in an already volatile geophysical terrain, that could be the thing that pushes it over over the threshold. And I know what was, so yeah, you can look at the path of the February 1979 eclipse, and again, shortly thereafter, Mount St. Helens.
Look at that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Robert, just for the audience here, we're going to close shortly. Just talk them through again what's happening here, April 19th to the 26th.
Yeah, this is going to be an epic journey, because we have both you and Randall there, but we also have Bertram and Cleve. Bertram is from Hopi, and Cleve is from Zuni. Cleve is an authentic medicine man. He was raised that way from childhood. And he's got a lot of experience in mechanics and mechanical engineering. He understands what this Randall talking about.
Okay, Robert, we've got to hook you up with Elon Musk and his Starlink at some point, I think.
Yeah,
I was losing pretty much everything Robert said, but at least he froze, looking a bit like a Michelangelo painter.
I will mention, just, you know, in terms of coincidences.
Did you guys lose
south of there? Yes. So Sacha, just south of Mount St. Helens, of course, and in that path of totality in 1979 was Salem, Oregon.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Robert, are you back with us?
Yeah. Did you guys lose me?
Yeah, Robert, would you?
We did lose you. You were extolling the virtues of what Randall and I are going to be doing in a few days' time. But yeah, just sign off on this. Reserve seats now, friends. That's the point of this media drop. You can go to worldviewsmedia.com/seminars. And just a last run through of the itinerary, please, Robert.
Yeah, we've got Randall coming on first, bringing the plasma technology. Martin Gray is an amazing National Geographic photographer, 42 years, 168 countries, more than 2,000 sacred sites. He'll be showing us imagery from that. And William Henry will be talking about plasma beings. Freddie Silva is focusing on temples. We have a couple of panels. Of course, you'll be speaking there. The panels, I was going to have you kind of guide through with these guys, talking about the connections of sacred sites to the earth and the importance of that. And then we'll have the Pueblo messengers again on Sunday to give you a follow-up chance to meet.
Very good. Very good. Okay. You've fallen off again. Randall, can't wait to meet you, brother, and travel well. And I'll see you on Friday. Looking forward to that.
Looking forward as well, Sacha. Yes, sir.
Great stuff. Thank you, Robert. And look forward to seeing you as well on Friday, brother.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, friends, over and out.